Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will introduce myself. My name is Anissa Gulazari. I'm from PBA class. Now I will journal with the title Grammar Interaction in Communicative Language Teaching Classroom Student-Teacher's Perception. The aim of the study was to find out the teachers' and student perception toward grammar interaction in communicative language teacher classroom. The participants of the study were two teachers and four students from an Islamic junior high school, madrasa. We used a case study method to conduct this research to identify teacher and student perception in teacher and learning grammar interaction in communicative language teacher classroom. The data were collected by using interview. The data were analyzed by using the thematic perception. Grammar is a crucial component in improving English skills. Using classroom activities to promote communicative activities in the classroom. Third, error correction was seen as one of process to create student in mastering material. Teacher grammar interaction in CLT classroom. Teacher acts as motivator and facilitates all students' needs. 5. Students should take part on the process of learning. Grammar is the language framework and system of meaning. Every language seems to have a grammar, and person speaking a similar language will communicate because they naturally understand and the grammar structure, which is the rules of meaning. According to Bedstone, language without grammar is going to be and it is harder to understand language without looking for this basic framework. So grammar language will be impossible to learn effectively without following structural rules. They found that grammar play a very important role in the study of language. The purpose of grammar is to educate those who use English to express their thought properly, both in speaking and writing. Research by Azad indicate that grammar is an essential and inseparable part in language teaching. So teachers have needed to use communicative activities and teaching grammar instructions. It is meant that in teaching English as a foreign language is necessary to consider not only how learning acquire grammatical competence, but also how they learn to communicate. That is how they developed communication competence. And small group grammar is best learned through the process of communicative. Teachers have a role of facilitator and monitor, and students as negotiator are individually responsible to make themselves understand and be understood. In the process of communicate, from the statement, it can be concluded that using CLT provides students in repetition, according and memorizing grammar patterns, but they demand the student in order to negotiative meaning and connection meaningfully and foreign context. Also, teacher will need to build exercise in the CLT classroom that enables students to learn well in target language. And the concept of communicative language teaching. Communicative language teacher CLT is one of approach to language teaching. This approach was found from the awareness that language as a system for communication, not just a set of the rules. It switched the emphasis and traditional language teacher to grammar and teacher-centered classes to the active use of alternative language in learning and acquisition. CLT is an approach that emphasizes a communicative ability. Furthermore, Richard contended that CLT describes a set of general principles grounded in the notion of communication competence as the goal of second and foreign language teacher. a new approach that has evolved as our understanding of the process of second language learning has developed. From the definition above, it can be concluded that communication language teaching (CLT) is a language teaching that emphasizes interaction as concept of means and final aim of language learning. Role of student, teachers, and grammar interaction in CLT. Communicative language teaching emphasizes on self-direction of our student. Teacher no longer rely on activities that involve repetition, accurately, and the memorization of sentence. They require students to communicate in contact and communicate meaningfully in foreign language as Oxford proposes that it is important for active development of a new language. In addition, Brin and Candlin and Richard and Rogers describe the role of learners in CLT as a delegate toward themselves, the process of learning, and the objective of learning emerging from an interaction in the role of the negotiator. Both in group and classroom activities, and CLT students expected support in classroom activities. Students are recommended to using activities in pair or group, as research for OTA reported that when students act in pair of small group or pairs, they perform various tasks using the target language per numerous function. Example, responding to questions, making demands, and giving feedback. From the statement, it can be concluded that CLT allows students to interact more with other learners rather than with the teachers, and working in pairs or small group one of effective methods to boost student communicative ability. Research design, participants, and locales of the study. The study used interesting case study method as the way to collect the data. Case study is qualitative approach that involves the study about issue explored through one of more cases over time through details in-depth data collection involving multiple sources of information. We use interesting case study because the study design was focused on the case interest, the case persons, and usually on unique situation. The study was conducted in Islamic Senior High School Palembang. We choose English teachers and English of the 9th grade at MTSN to Palembang by using purposeful sampling technique. The aim of purposeful sampling was to choose the individual that could provide the information and the most detailed information to help the research answer the research question. That data collection and analysis. In this research, in order to find out the teacher and student perception in grammar, interaction, and communicative language teacher, we use interview in order to gain information about teacher and student perception toward grammar, interaction, and communicative language teaching classroom. To analyze the data of teacher and student perception toward grammar, interaction, and communicative language teacher classroom. The data from interview were analyzed to determine information about teacher and student perception toward grammar, interaction, and communicative language teacher classroom. After we collected the data, we analyzed the data by communicative language using semantic analysis. In the research, we use trustworthiness to evaluate qualitative data analysis to make sure that the findings were credible. Creswell defines validating is the research evaluates authenticity or credibility of the research through some techniques such as member checking or triangulation. Findings: the data gained from interview were analyzed by using thematic analysis. The description of the findings were explained as follows: teacher perception. After analyzing the data were interviewed, we found that there were some teachers' perception toward grammar, interaction, and communicative language teacher. The themes and codes gained from the analysis of qualitative data obtained from interview explained in Table 1. And the importance of grammar. Based on the data obtained from the interview, we got some teacher perception about grammar, interaction, and communicative language teaching. We found that most of the teachers agree that the grammar is a crucial component in improving student skill, and as a CLT classroom, it was because grammar was very helpful for the student in improving English language. Teacher was said, yes, if the student will know about grammar and English, they will have good communication in the English. The data obtained from interview also saw that the teacher perceived that explicit grammar interaction was helpful in CLT classroom. Teacher 2 claim in teaching grammar 1 clearly expressed that a communicative way in teaching, such as introducing grammar point through example and activity, which help students feel a little safer and also increase student motivation. Classroom activities. Based on the data obtained from interview, it was found some perception toward grammar, interaction in communicative language teaching. We found that most of the teachers agree that in learning process, group or pair was designed to promote communication in the classroom. However, all the teachers also perceived that the employing group or students were able to interact well. The data obtained from interview also saw that the teacher recommended pair group or interaction with effective activities. Therefore, quality and quantity of error correction. Based on the data obtained from interview, we found that most of teachers agree that error correction was one of process to create student is maturing materials. However, the teacher also did not feel angry when student made a grammatical error. The teacher too claimed that error or mistake in communicating in English is tolerated. So if the student make a mistake in learning process, so we as a teacher can make it correct. The role of teacher in classroom. The data obtained from interviews show that in teaching grammar, interaction, in communicative language teaching, teacher acts as motivator in teaching learning process. The teaching press claim that yes, because teacher also acts as motivator in the teaching learning process. However, we also found the most of the teacher trained the student to take responsibility and self-discipline to develop their activities. Teacher too said training learning to take responsibility and self-discipline are good to develop their ability because every learner needs to take the responsibility for their learning. The role and contribution of student in learning process. The data obtained from the interview also revealed that teaching grammar interaction in CLT classrooms should be balanced. In teaching English, between tasks and activities must be balanced. Also, in a teacher English language, students should not only mastering the theory but also practicing the theory. The student perception toward grammar, interaction in communicative language teaching. After analyzing the data from interview, we found that there was some student perception toward grammar, interaction, and communicative language teaching. The trends and codes gained from the analysis of qualitative data obtained from interview explained in Table 2. The themes and codes described in Table first were fully explained as follows: the importance of grammar. Based on the data obtained from the interview, we found that some student perceptions short grammar interaction in communicative language teaching classroom. We found that most of students considered grammar as an important part in learning English language. Students first and third said that yes, because grammar important to mastering English language. Then student 2 had the same opinion. They said because with grammar we can communicate with the foreigner easier. Data obtained from interview also saw that students felt that grammar score of English students for claim, by learning English grammar we can produce good sentence. Classroom activities based on the data obtained from interview is one part perception toward grammar communicative language in learning process. I found that most of the students agree that using group made it faster and appropriate way to develop knowledge quickly. The students one said that yes, it's more understandable and the task finished quickly. Moreover, the student 3 claimed that studying in group is good. I can ask my friends and practice speaking more comfortable. And then student 2 and 4 have same opinion. They said in pair can know what I don't know before. Quality and quantity of error correction. Based on data obtained from interview, we found that most of students agree that correcting an error has been considered helpful in achieving successful and communicative comprehensions. The role of teacher in classroom data where the role of teacher in classroom. The data were obtained from interview found some student perception toward the student of teacher and teacher grammar interaction in communicative language teacher classroom student group gave motivation to student and to teacher facility all student need. The student idea that the teacher don't much over control, let the student get the creativity if it is not out of lesson. The student 2 said the teacher giving the student motivation needs. The last one of the teacher 4 said a good teacher explained the material interestingly. The role and contribution of students in the learning process. The data gotten from the interview also revealed that the role and contribution of students in the learning process, the student perceived that the student should take part on the process of learning. In addition, students also argue that the role and contribution of students in the learning is received that the lesson. The student one claim as an active learner who ready to answer the teacher's question. The student 2 also pay attention and understanding the lesson. In addition, student 4 said following the learning process well. And the last discussion, after analyzing the data by using arithmetic analysis, one found that there was several information about teacher and student perception toward grammar interaction in communicative language teaching classroom. Thus considered of A, the importance of grammar, B, classroom activities, C, quality of quantity of error correction, D, the role of teacher in classroom, A, the role and contribution of student in the learning process. Therefore, the explanation of the factor was described as following in order to know for much information about them. The first was the importance of grammar. Conclusion: Based on the data analyzed by using thematic analysis, it was found teacher and student perception toward grammar interaction in communicative language teaching. The first teacher's perception in teaching grammar interaction in communicative language teaching classroom. First, the teachers think that provide students with explanation was an effective way to teach grammar interaction in CLT classroom. 2. In learning process, teacher using group and peer work was designed to promote communication in CLT classroom. 3. Teacher claim that in learning process, error correction was on process student to mastering material. So correcting mistake was on obligation for teacher. 4. Teacher perceived that they should act motivator on the teaching. Teaching grammar interaction CLT classroom, students should not only mastering the theory but also practicing the theory.